This is Future Sense Now, where we explore the landscape and byways of our shared futures. Future Sense Now is brought to you by the Futures Forum. Stay tuned for a journey to the futures of women with host Dr. Claire Nelson.
All right. Greetings and welcome to Future Sense Now, an online e-zine of the Futures Forum. It is March 2018 and we're continuing our celebration of Women's History Month with an exploration into the future history of women. We're voicing her story from 2030 and beyond. And why 2030? Well, UN SDG Goal 5 specifically speaks to the development and inclusion of women. And given the increasing uprising since January 2017, when women around the world marched in protest to the new narrative of Trumpism and started the hashtag #MeToo movement, a lot has been happening, and we wanted to find out what women around the world are thinking. Now, in this segment, I will speak to Brenda Katwesigye, and she will obviously correct my pronunciation. So let me make my life more simple by saying I'm speaking to Brenda, who is the managing director of WAZI Vision from Kampala, Uganda. She's the founder and CEO, and this company builds mobile technologies for diagnosis of eye defects and provides eyeglasses from recycled materials to school-going children in Uganda. She is a part of the new changing dynamic of women who are changing Africa, and indeed is distinguished by winning awards such as the Africa Rethink Award for African Female Entrepreneurs in 2016, the International Telecommunications Union's Young Innovators Award, and the Public Health Award for Best Innovation in Health, and the SITC Tournai Grand Prize for Innovation, and that is among others. I like to add that she comes from a background in telecommunications engineering and has worked at distinguished companies such as Deloitte East Africa. So without further ado, let me bring into the conversation our guest for this segment, Brenda Katwesigye.
Yeah, thank you so much. You got the name right.
Please correct my pronunciation. How are you, Brenda?
I'm good. How are you doing, Claire?
Please, could you please pronounce your name? It's Katwesigye. How is it pronounced?
Katwesigye.
Katwesigye.
Yeah, Katwesigye.
Katwesigye.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, Brenda Katwesigye. There you go. Yes. I feel already accomplished. Now, I'm very excited to have you on this conversation because you're one of the youngest people I've ever interviewed. I'm always looking for very distinguished women who are working at a global level. And while you're not working at the global level, you certainly are working in a national and possibly regional level to transform a major challenge in Africa.
Right.
And so you are one of the women who I consider changing the future of the African system. So as you're aware, 2030 is what people are calling a pull year. What is your thinking as a young person when you hear the grand dream which states we resolve between now and 2030 to end poverty and hunger everywhere, to combat inequalities within and among countries, and to promote gender equality and empowerment of women and girls? How does that statement affect you, and what is your response to that?
I think that statement makes me very optimistic, mostly because already I can see a lot of steps that are being taken to take care of that inequality, and there's so many initiatives that have come up to support women and to also give them a voice and a space. So for me, I am very, very optimistic when I hear that, and I'm looking into the future, knowing for sure that a lot of these initiatives, and many of them have been successful in one way or the other in highlighting different women and what they're doing, bringing them to the center stage. So I'm very, very optimistic, and I think that's my biggest reaction to that.
Well, okay, so you are known as a member of the Regional Advisory Board for Young African Leaders Initiative. I think this was started in the Obama era. So clearly, entrepreneurism is your space in which you're hoping to, as Goal 5 would say, help to ensure full and effective participation in leadership. So
Correct.
you're coming also from a technology background. So tell me about, how do you see young women like yourself in Africa, who are working from a technology background, driving the conversation of and shaping the future? How is that happening in Africa? Well, at least in Uganda and East Africa.
Right. No, I mean, now, especially like in Uganda, you're seeing so many more women coming to the forefront of starting technology companies and running them successfully. If I give you an example, last year in Uganda, there was the MTN Awards, and the topmost innovator, one of actually a good friend of mine called Evelyn Namara, she won, and she beat so many people, including men, to the prize. And we are seeing so many women build up a lot of confidence and jumping into the technology space and creating businesses and solutions within the technology space. So the times are changing, even within East Africa, to be honest. And now there are more people being encouraged to join coding for women and technology for women. So it's really, really changing. I'll be honest, there's still more to be done. There's still more to be done, but the girls that have stood up to represent this have actually set the precedence and the example for so many other girls to come behind them. And we are seeing a complete shift, one, a societal and cultural shift. That's number one, in the way that people view girls and their abilities, in the way that people include girls in different initiatives, and in the way that girls are encouraged to start and actually build and grow technology companies. So there's been a growing movement around that. There've been so many initiatives, like right now in Uganda, there is an initiative called Women in Technology Uganda. So they are actually involving so many other women, including those that are coming from not so well-to-do backgrounds, and they're teaching them to code, and they're teaching them entrepreneurship skills, they're teaching them financial skills, and all this is meant to encourage them and to show them. And every now and then they actually invite people like myself, and invite people like Evelyn, and people that have actually done built businesses within this space, to speak to these girls and mentor them. So I think with time, as we keep mentoring one woman, mentoring another, I think all this is going to shift. Already, society is starting to recognize the power of these women within the tech space, and they're starting to see that women are competing favorably with the men. And now I think it's shifting. There's still a lot to do, but I think so far, I think within the last 5 years, it's been incredible. It's been commendable.
Answer a question. I have so many questions coming up, but one quick question before I go into the more complicated question is, what was her innovation? What was the innovation that won?
Okay, so Evelyn Namara actually runs a bulk payments company, and it's called Vouch Digital. So she has partnered with big non-government organizations to help create mobile money payment vouchers for people within rural areas. So rather than the usual using of vouchers, like manual vouchers, she's now using technology to actually ease access to finances and to money to people that are supposed to be beneficiaries of non-government organization programs. So that's, yeah, it's been an incredible, it's changed so many, and she's handling so much money through her system and building her number of partners. So it's really, really commendable. She's built a company 2 years now, and already she's broken even, she's profitable, she has so many partners, she has done so many billions of Uganda shillings running through her system. So that's an example of a woman that has created a technology company and sustained it and grown it.
Now, okay, so what comes up for me as I hear this, and the idea of technology in this case being used to create more equity, more equality, more access for poor people who are not normally have access to things in southern Uganda and East African space. Do you see then, as women begin to continue to, let's say, take up space in the technology issue, technology sector, that this will also drift into other sectors of the Ugandan economy? What are you seeing?
Absolutely, and again, I'm already seeing that happening. So again, we have to be careful not to just push the technology agenda a little too far, because we've seen different women have different talents and different abilities, and we've seen their expertise spread into sales, spread into digital design, spread into graphic design, spread into so many talents. Right now, I think more the movement is initiative. We are pushing, more women are being pushed to be innovative and to just start, create something, have initiative. And no matter what space you're playing in, and as long as they're taught to have a business mind at the back of their mind in what they're doing, I think now we are starting to see it spread into so many different things. So it's not just technology, but we're seeing, except that now there are more opportunities for technology, because those are the areas that women have been underrepresented, which is why there's a lot of emphasis over there. But other than that, I think we are seeing a shift in pretty much a lot of sectors now. But I'll say technology initiatives are actually at the top of the tier, mostly because of degree of underrepresentation of women, even right now.
At least certainly in Uganda. Are you seeing one of the issues that have come up some years ago was this idea, if women progressed too far, too fast, there will be a backlash. There's one scenario of the future. There's another scenario that talks about separate but equal. So women are going one way, men are going one way. Another scenario talks about partnership. What is evolving in the Ugandan space? Your peers, the young men who are your peers, is there a sense of a backlash, or do they see themselves as partners to women having equal, let's say, possibility of leadership in the professional arenas of life? What are you seeing?
Right. I've actually noticed a little bit of both. More so I've had experiences with the backlash, including myself. So a lot of men have been coming out and saying, you're catering for the girl child, you're creating all these programs. For instance, to join the university, women in Uganda, girls get an extra 1.5 weight to their grades to get them into university. And then we're looking at, for instance, business courses and certain courses. Now, actually, there are more women at the university than the men. And now, because of that extra. So men are starting to come up and say, look, you're ignoring the boy child. You know, if you want to play level ground and don't give advantage to women. I think if you want equality, then let's all play in the same field. But we're also saying that, you know, sometimes, I don't know if you've seen the cartoon whereby one child is given a stool and the other one is left to stand and look over the fence. I think it's not more equality. I think it should be more equity. Naturally, I think society has sort of put women at a disadvantage in education, in so many things, and that's why these initiatives exist. So a lot of men have actually come out to say that, you know what, it's now getting too far, because we are seeing women get ahead even in the corporate world and whatnot. On the flip side, we have also seen some men actually come up to support women. I think, and a lot of these men, I think it's because some of them were raised by single mothers, others have seen the struggle that some women go through to actually get there, and also the inequalities that happen. So some men are actually, I would say, a little feminist, right? But we are seeing a little bit of both. Quite frankly, and it's an ongoing conversation that keeps evolving.
Are you a member of any intergenerational organizations or any other organizations besides your business that are kind of involved in having this conversation on the either the leadership future or the technology future? What organizations are you a part of that are carrying this conversation forward, if any?
So I am actually part of quite a number of organizations. I mean, the Young African Leaders Initiative itself is one of those organizations that are advocating for equality, advocating for no violence against women, and things like that that are more protective of women. But I'm also like part of different innovation groups and different initiatives like Zimba Women, which is an initiative in Uganda that sort of like empowers women, especially women in technology, and creating awareness about what they're doing and what their rights are, and what initiatives are available to support them.
But how is that being balanced? I was going to ask, really. I was asking the question because I want to ask, is there a conversation about how these new quote-unquote issues are being balanced around traditional ways of being? You're talking about, for example, single woman-headed households in Uganda. Is that, let's say, a phenomenon of the last 15 years, so that more people are used to women being in control? Compared to say 50 years ago or 30 years ago when there were more, is that because of the wars where women have had to take up the space, so there is less, because of the wars you've had less tension? How is this culturally emerging so that we don't have that major backlash? I'm hearing that in some African countries, actually the violence against women and girls is increasing because of this. So I'd like to hear your take on that.
Yeah, so I'll speak for Uganda and then I'll speak for Rwanda and how that has come and how that has affected the demographic in a way. So in Uganda, for instance, 50 years ago, I mean, the culture is changing generally. 50 years ago, our parents, marriage, I mean, by the time you're 15, you're married and you have children. And if you die, I mean, if your husband dies, for instance, then his brother would marry you and actually take you on as his wife. So there has always been the case of the man taking care of the home. But then now that women are starting to earn more, I mean, in the last 10 to 15 years, women are actually starting to earn more, or the same as men, and the gender gap is being reduced. Pay gap, the gender pay gap is being reduced, and you're having more women at the forefront of careers and whatnot. And also because now I think there has been a shift whereby some men have started to, and now there's something more common that's happening. Some men are abandoning their children and women, or relationships don't work out, and women are independent enough to take care of their children. So we've had that shift now, especially because of that empowerment. So women are now empowered to take care of themselves, that they are not going to allow to be treated anyway if they can actually take care of themselves. For the case of Rwanda, I mean, it's very obvious about what happened in 1994, the Rwandan genocide. And the Rwandan genocide happened in a way that, well, there were being more men being killed than the women within families. So you saw widows and orphans having to, the number growing a lot more. So we had that shift whereby you're having more widowed women survive the genocide and actually have to take care of their kids. And that has also, so through that, they learn to empower themselves, they learn to survive, and they learn to thrive. And before you know it, you have this whole independent woman generation coming up because of what we have seen with our parents and also with our generation right now.
So social change theory likes to talk about the need for about 10% of population to have the same worldview to reach a tipping point. Do you think that Uganda is approaching that point where it will be just the norm? So maybe by 2030, do you think it will be normal that they would expect that young girls going to university in that era would choose whatever they want to choose and would be taking up leadership at all levels? What are your thoughts on that?
I think certainly that is going to happen. And maybe even a little sooner than 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to happen. We're already seeing that happening. I mean, we're seeing female presidents in African countries. We're seeing the Speaker of Parliament in our country is a woman. So you're looking at people taking up leadership positions. I mean, the executive director of the Bank of Uganda that just resigned was a woman. So we are having all these women take up leadership. The leader of opposition is a woman. So we're having so many women take up leadership positions and actually stepping up to the plate. And we are going to see more of that, because now we see a shift in the generation. Women are more empowered. Girls know their rights. Girls know, they know what they want. It's amazing. It's incredible. And this is the information era. Girls now have access to information online on Facebook. So they know and they learn all these things. So it's no longer the old cultural era of women belong to the kitchen. It's now women belong to the table and they have something to bring to the table. And now people are starting to see that and they're starting to appreciate that. And women themselves are starting to see that in themselves. Yeah.
Really, 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 really interesting to hear of these major shifts happening. So you think about the global challenges then of our shared future, whether we talk about access to technology, the digital divide, whether we talk about access to water, energy. If you had to pick one global challenge as a focal point, which would you address and why?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Well, the global challenges, there's so many different challenges that are facing us. I mean, I could probably say you already decided to pick healthcare, but is healthcare the one you want to stick with? In other words, are you, or would you switch from healthcare to doing something else, access to technology or access to water? Is this a space you think from a business perspective that you can continue to make contributions and grow and have leadership for your company and your industry?
Actually, not just that, as much as my company falls within the healthcare space, but one thing that maybe I don't say often about what my company does is that the people that make those glasses are women. So for me, empowerment is at the core of what I believe in. I believe that if you are empowered as an individual, you have power to actually change so much within your community. Most of these women, handing them out cash or anything is not going to help them. It's empowering them. So for me, closing the gender equality gap is something I'm very, very passionate about. And I think that it's one of the things I would really, really work on, and I'm already trying to address in my company. All my glasses are made by women.
Oh.
Yeah, they're made by women.
So you feel as if to say in your business, you're trying to create a space for actually practicing your philosophy and values by employing women who may not be otherwise employable, perhaps,
right,
giving them skills and therefore empowering them to become
exactly
the leaders of their own lives to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. And we give them like a 360 kind of training, and it's not just to make the glass, but the design process, what goes in, the thought process, the business behind it. Look at it in a 360 point of view, because we want them to build that confidence that they can learn anything, that they don't have to, even if they didn't go to school, they can actually learn anything that they want to learn.
So as we draw to a close then, I want you to imagine yourself in 2030 and tell me a bold headline of a headline story of what has happened in 2030 because of your work in WAZI or YALI, Young African Leadership Initiative. What would you like to see? And I know it's going to be optimistic. You already said you're optimistic. So give me a headline that reflects where you would like to see history evolve in 2030.
For my country or globally?
I would say for your country, because you have the power to shape Yali. That's a space you're working in. So you have the power to shape that future. So something that you could actually say, this has happened because of work that you have done.
Right. Okay. So I'll talk about it generally. What I really wish would happen is that Uganda gets a female president. That's one thing. It's one thing I know.
Would it be you?
For sure.
Would it be you? Are you interested in politics?
I'm not too political, but I mean the head of the Kampala Capital City Authority is a woman, and she's doing incredible. She has transformed the city incredibly. So I think women have a way of dealing with things and get things done. So I would want a female president. But from my own point of view, and from the work I'm doing with WAZI, I'd want to be 2030. I'll be 40 years old. So I'd want to be that woman that is an icon for so many women to look at and aspire to, and also to mentor some people. So for me, as on a personal level, I see myself as an example and as an icon of when they talk about women who have persevered through difficult times and through challenges and still made it. I want to be a name that comes up, but also I want a female president. Probably between you.
But I'm going to see if I can help you with a headline then. So
all right.
WAZI now provides glasses to school children. So in 2030, that's 12 years from now, WAZI will be a regional company. It will be a leading regional company in the provision of healthcare for vision, providing not only ophthalmology testing, but also providing fashionable eyewear across the region of East Africa.
Of Africa, actually.
Africa. There you go, the whole continent of Africa. So
yes, ma'am.
WAZI will become a brand name household the way Foster Grant is, right?
Thank you very much.
That's right. For everyone.
WAZI for everyone.
Exactly.
That's correct.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you so much, Brenda Katwesigye, for participating
so much, Claire.
in this conversation.
Thank you so much, Claire.
I hope you don't mind if I ask one more question.
Absolutely.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I would like, are you between 20 and 30 or between 30 and 40?
I'm actually 27 years old, so between 20 and 30.
Wow. So in 2030, she's only going to be 40 years old, just on the...
Yes, ma'am.
So she'll be a young, dynamic woman changing the face of Africa, and I'm so delighted to have the opportunity to hear firsthand what the future of Uganda, East Africa, and indeed the entire continent of Africa would look like. Thank you again so much, Brenda Katwesigye.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Yes. So friends, you have heard it from the horse's mouth, as we say in Jamaica. I want to say we have been listening to Future Sense Now, where we explore salient ideas for sustainable futures. We've come to the end of a delightful conversation, but the story continues being written all of us and by people like Brenda in the continent of Africa. Remember, creating the future is our shared responsibility, and it is always better for us to act as the parent of our future rather than the child of our past. So let us seize the day and continue to build a better future for all. As we say in Jamaica, walk good and safe journeys.
All right.
You have been listening to Future Sense Now with Dr. Claire Nelson, brought to you by the Futures Forum. For more, please visit www.thefuturesforum.org. Thank you for listening. Spread the word. Share the future.